how's it going, guys? This is Dr. David here with SHARC Doc Talk. Today we have Alvin instead of Doc T today.
Hey.
Mainly just because Doc T is actually traveling to go with the Chargers today for their away game, so he has to set up for that over the weekend. But we also wanted to at least put out a podcast and not leave you guys waiting in the dark here for the weekend. So he's okay. It's just he's got to do work, right?
Happy to fill in.
Oh yeah, he's happy to fill in, and I've personally learned a bunch from Alvin too. So we're gonna dive into some fun stuff today. Not saying that we don't dive into fun stuff, but we're gonna dive into other stuff today where you can see some differences with how me as a chiro, sports med based and trained, and how Alvin as a PT will kind of view things on certain injuries or certain aspects of things here. So before we even get there, Alvin, how was your week? Did you have any fun things, or was it like a pretty normal week for you?
Week was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess patient-wise, I had one of our football players got hit pretty hard, so that was kind of concerning to see. And he showed me some video, and I was like, "Oh man, poor guy." I don't know if I can ever have kids play football, but man, like I got to watch some of his games because it was streaming, and like I'm just the whole time like, "Oh my God, don't touch him! Please don't touch him!" And
yeah. Oh yeah, that one's. I know who you're talking about. It's it's always funny to see them on the rehab floor,
right?
And then to see them in game action where they're gonna get hit. It almost feels like it's a project that you've worked on and you don't want it to fall or break.
Totally. It is pretty cool to see him at a very high level sport, because like I only see him like within the confines of our clinic, but man, when he's in his element, it's like amazing to see what a true elite athlete can do, and it's amazing.
Yeah, he's playing at he's playing quarterback at college level, right?
Quarterback college level, yeah.
Do you know what division he's at? Or?
He's in the junior college level right
junior
now.
College, yeah.
He transferred from a Division I college and then transferred to a JUCO, and then he's planning to go back to Division I after.
Oh, what? Yeah, well, Alvin's gonna help him get there as best he can.
Oh yeah,
and it'll be fun. Yeah. So if you're seeing this, obviously we can't see your name. Good luck. We're rooting for you. He ties into a couple things that patient does, and I'll get back to it after I talk about my week. But my week generally was pretty good. Saw more patients this week, so my hands have been a little bit more sore. So
good.
I had to talk to Doc T a little bit about like, okay, if my hands are sore after this many patients, is it a technique thing, or is it just because I'm not ready to do certain things? And we kind of talked about it. Technique was kind of falling apart toward the end because I was tired. So we're fixing up a couple things. Not that anything's bad. It's just I want to be in this game for a long time rather than a short time.
I think there's also an overuse component too.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's like constant, right?
Yeah.
It's not like you have like a long break, especially if you have like back to back throughout the day. So it's kind of like you said, learning to protect yourself, don't buddy up your hands or whatever it is. I like to ice my hands like almost every day, just to kind of be proactive. It does feel pretty nice because it's mainly the thumb.
Yeah.
The thumb is the most compromising of the joints, as you know. And so I always do that. And then I do a lot of wrist extension and wrist flexion, like a ton, like 10 pounders, 15 pounders, and just every day, just get it really solid. It just helps with my grip strength, when I play golf, things like that. It just really benefits me. And so,
funny story about golf though and wrist pain. Although this isn't what we're going to talk about today, but I remember last year I was actually having some issues with my wrist. I think it was because I was being dumb and I was deadlifting and I was dropping it fast, and the bar came back and hit me in the wrist.
Oh,
and I was kind of having, I wouldn't say really big problems, but enough for me to like take a pause and kind of say, hey, what's up with this wrist? Because I still have to work, right?
Right.
Didn't know what was going on, but I went golfing with you guys one day, and it was fine afterwards.
Huh.
So
that's interesting. Yeah.
I think it was just the pronation supination of the golf club, because I'm not a great golfer. I'm hitting the ball as hard as I can because that's kind of the person that I am. But it helped my wrist. So I'm not saying that golf is a therapeutic exercise for that, but it can be, I guess.
Oh yeah, grip strengthening, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, even just thinking about like isometrics, right? You're basically just holding on for dear life on that club sometimes, and that in itself can be therapeutic.
Yeah.
So
if there's wrist pain, go ahead, try it.
I like that little anecdotal evidence. I like that.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's scientific by any means, but hey, give it a try.
Yeah.
But back to the athlete that you talked about, it kind of reminded me of one of my patients that I am currently game planning for, or I guess you could say making a plan of care for, really. I have a 14-year-old basketball player that just recently suffered a complete rupture of her ACL. I've mentioned it in previous podcasts, but it's been about like 3 weeks, close to a month now. And your patient, actually, the quarterback, is coming back from an ACL injury, if I remember correctly. So there's a lot of overlap here in what we talk about and what we do. So I'm curious about like how do we attack it, right? I think your athlete, he didn't come to you straight after. Did he come back to you after the ACL, or like right after, or was it sometime?
Pretty soon after. Fortunately for him, it didn't actually seem like a complete.
Yeah.
And so we kind of managed it as more of conservatively in terms of like see if we can get him back before he really even needs it, and he didn't really need it at all. And that's why kind of looking back, I was like, I don't think it was complete at all, because after his treatments and his other stuff that he's been doing, he looked perfectly fine. His range of motion was really good early on. I mean, mostly it was just swelling in the beginning, but for the most part, he recovered relatively quick. So that's why I didn't think it was a complete tear. And so, what's it called? Yeah. Does she have any limitations?
Right now, I mean, it's been a week since I've seen her, so she's been changing recently. When it first happened, they literally called me like right after it happened.
Right.
So the first time I saw her, obviously crutches, kind of walking around, turned black and blue. It was already pulsating on her. When it happened, I didn't want to say what happened immediately, because the gold standard is still going to be the image.
Right.
And some of the tests that you do off the top will be either false negatives or false positives because of all the swelling that's there.
Right.
And
you don't want to scare the person anyways.
Yeah, I don't want to scare the person anyways. But we were able to get the image on that one. But for her, right off the bat, I kind of gave her just your basic range of motion stuff to do. So like some basic heel slides and TKEs as best as possible. Terminal knee extensions. I realize I'm short phrasing it for everyone out there. Terminal knee extensions, just to get the knee moving. But within 2 weeks, she was like walking without a crutch. When I measured with the goniometer, she still was lacking about 10 degrees of extension that I wanted. And I forgot how much flexion she not needed, but where she was at. I think she was at 100 degrees of flexion, 110 degrees. She was at 100. We were aiming for like 110, 120, around there. So she was lacking certain things there. And it was still kind of painful to move toward that. So yeah, that's where she was at the last time I saw her. She just got sick this week, so I couldn't.
Okay, so that's some limit. It's just, and she's still swollen, I'm assuming.
Yeah, when I first saw it, it was still, I wouldn't say like blown up, but it was noticeably swollen than the other one.
Right. Yeah, and I think you're going about it the right way. Typically, like we had talked about before when you had mentioned about her. It's the swelling is the biggest one, right? Trying to get the swelling controlled down, elevation. And I always tell people what elevation is. It's not simply, just above the heart or you're laying down in some pillows. It's literally you're on the floor, your feet are on the wall, and you're about like almost 90 degrees up for about 10 to 15 minutes, like 3 times a day, right? Yeah. And so elevation is your best bet, right? Ice is okay in the beginning. That'll help with some of the swelling, but elevation, using gravity is really the best way to get some of the swelling out of there. And I stress that a lot for most people. So if you're post-op, 3-4 months later and you're still got swelling, you got to elevate that a ton. Like swelling can prevent a lot of range of motion, can cause a lot of pain. It's a big culprit for a lot of these symptoms that you have. And until that's gone, it's really hard to tell kind of where you're truly at.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
And like you talk about getting back flexion, even with her, did she had her MRI?
She had her MRI the same day. Yeah.
It said full thickness.
Yeah, full thickness, complete tear.
Right. Yeah, and so they can still recover a majority, probably most of their range of motion, especially into flexion, even without the surgery. So trying to getting that back as quickly as possible. Yeah. If you can get back to past 120, 125, that's like really great. And obviously extension is the most important part. Even pre-surgery, prehab, and post-surgery is getting extension back, like 100%. 0 and even past 0 if they can get past 0.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing that I was trying to stress to her and her family, which I love her family too, because they actually are listening to me now, which is this is fun. Whenever we talk about like surgery for an ACL case, obviously when I tore my own ACL, it's a very somber type of morning whenever you hear about like, hey, this is what I need, this is how long it's going to take, and X, Y, and Z, right? Now, I'm not saying that every ACL case is a surgical case, like as you were saying with your athlete, but for her, she's a 14-year-old basketball player. She's already getting scouted for certain things. Right. And I kind of asked how she tore it. It was doing, quote unquote, one of her moves. So it's going to be in positions that are...
Right, probably non-contact.
Not non-contact. It was a non-contact.
Yeah,
she just
it was really common, yeah.
So for her, I'm like, it's going to be higher on the list. Let's consider it. However, before we even say you're going to get surgery, the biggest thing that, at least I believe, is that we should get you strong as best as we can beforehand, right? I'm not saying we start 100% weight training right then and there. Right. But the more mobile and the more strong you are prior to the surgery, the easier the post-surgery rehab is.
Yes, prehab training for any type of surgery is like ideal, especially with something like an ACL, getting that quad super strong, getting those hamstrings as strong as you can, like using electrical stim, like neural muscle electrical stimulation, NMES, things like that. Like we have that. I have that if you need me to, you want to use that.
Oh, cool. I'll steal that.
Yeah, like that's a great thing. You can do BFR probably with that as well in combination. Yeah, with NMES, as long as the swelling is controlled, right? Just get her super strong, and I mean she just hopefully once her weight bearing is a little bit more tolerable, then you start doing like box squats, TRX squats. Like they can, once the swelling is gone, they almost seem like they're getting close to normal, right? Even though the knee's a little unstable, so they can do quite a bit. So getting back to that as quickly as she can. Then like you said, like if she can rehab, then her post-hab is way faster. Right? She'll get back that extension and flexion really quick. Her quads will already be really strong, and then just managing the swelling and the tissue healing in itself, and then. Like what we always talk about with ACL is like getting her past that 6 to 8 week mark, right? That would be like, 6 to 8 month mark is where you want to protect the graft or whatever she's using as much as possible, because that's a very high incidence of re-tear, right? So if we can get her really strong in the beginning and then get her past that 6 to 8 month mark, then cool. Like we're and then obviously doing our standard measures, objective measures, in order to kind of make sure she's clear to play again, then that'd be a great thing. I mean, that's like the whole protocol of doing ACL. But
general protocol for the ACL there. You mentioned some objective findings or like objective tests to make sure that they are ready to go back to play, right? What are some of the things that you like to see in an athlete before they are like, hey, you're good to go?
Yeah, this one is like, it can be
because it's a little different.
I feel like it's kind of, I don't want to say controversial, but a lot of people have different measures now. And so it used to kind of be like the Y balance test, where they're kind of like a single leg and they're kind of reaching out in a Y formation. And so that one was pretty standard, relatively standard for a while. There's the single leg hop test, which was also a pretty standard one too. Even that one, people are like, it's not enough. You have to have like actual force measurements, like what's your quad to hamstring strength ratio, right? Is how close it is to equal as possible, things like that. So it should be pretty robust, not robust. Just like comprehensive. That's a better word, in terms of like in terms of the strength or single leg mobility and overall mobility of the knee itself. Single leg stability and overall knee mobility itself, to kind of really get to the point so they're to return to sport.
Yeah,
so
100%. I've definitely seen people break out like force plates to kind of see on both sides. I'm actually a fan of leaning toward that direction. Obviously, not everyone has access to a force plate or anything there. But yeah, your general strength should be pretty close to where it was before, right? Now, am I saying it's going to be stronger or less stronger right after? I don't know, right? It's based on your rehab and what your goals were. But also, like, to me, I'm like, do you also have to make sure they are comfortable getting in those positions as well?
Oh yeah, 100%, right. And so, unfortunately, a lot of if you're going to kind of like a typical clinic, they'll kind of get you going, and then maybe after the 5 or 6 month mark, when you're already kind of walking and running, they're like, oh, you're good to go. And then when most of them haven't really done their sport, they haven't done like a crossover, or they haven't done a step back, they haven't actually played a 3-on-3 or without a defense, things like that. And those are things that they have to kind of get through, even just psychologically, so they know that they can trust their leg again, which is a really important part. And so, there's a lot of different things you can do to kind of test her, or at least put her in, expose her to different positions, challenging her in different positions, using like our giant super band that I got.
I was using that today. It's kind of fun.
It's really fun, and you can really test them and put them in a lot of weird positions that allows them to stress the knee a little bit, and so that's going to be required of them in their sport.
100%. I saw you kind of doing that with your athlete over there. I almost said his name. That's a good catch. Editing this too, so props to me. I saw you kind of doing that with your athlete there, especially in the last couple months, where it got more than just, let's go straight in the quad. You started doing other things in multiple planes. What was your thought process on that, and what was your attack when making kind of those rehab?
So the hard part too is like kind of like strength training, with lifting. It's like you kind of have to go through cycles as well, right? Like different. You're in the hypertrophy phase or power phase, and so with him, when he's getting closer to season or at season, it's like, okay, what are you prioritizing, right? So I don't need him to 1 rep max all the time, right? I don't need him to get. It's fun. I don't even really need to get him to 70% of his effort. What I need is like challenging dynamic stuff in different positions under fatigue.
Yeah.
Right. And so if we can get that done and get him comfortable with that, then I'm much more confident in him being out there, and he's a lot more confident being out there. And different planes, as in like lateral, like forward and back, rotational stuff, and that super band I'm talking about, like it's literally like those loop.
But it's
bands,
really big.
but it's a huge.
Yeah.
And so
is
that
it like
way,
6 feet? It's long.
It's longer than 6 feet. It's probably like 12 feet.
Okay. Yeah.
It's really long.
It's long.
It's hilarious. And so
I don't know where to store it.
yeah, I just hang it up. And so, but it's great. And so so now that he's kind of now that he is in season, I'm not trying to do a ton of like heavy lifting. He's practicing basically every single day, and then having a game. So he's got to prioritize a lot of recovery time, and then then it's like, okay, where do I come in, right? Am I just doing pure quad strength? Like, no, we got to
at this point, no.
Let's test him in stuff, in positions that he may have to get into, and he's playing, especially stuff like deceleration, right? Like forward deceleration when he's back. I mean, I remember he used to complain about, not complain, but he used to tell me about like when he steps back, so when he does a drop, like a three-step drop or 7-foot drop, step drop. It's like his knee will extend, like hyperextend, and so like working on that. Okay, why is it hyperextending? Is that a quad dominance problem? Is it just like he has no proprioception, like understanding where his knee is in space type of problem? And so figuring stuff like that out at this point. And then once the season is over, then it's kind of like, okay, rebuilding again.
Like I like how you mentioned the longevity of this all. It's not just like, okay, that 6 to 8 month mark is done. We started to do the athletic stuff, and now you're in season, then we're done. You're still continually working through everything, right? I know for me, I'm 4 or 5 years away from my tear. I'm still like working on other things because it doesn't feel 100% the same, but I'm still able to do everything that I need to. For him, because he's at the higher level athletics, like he still has to, if you don't mind me asking, right knee or left knee, do you know? Right knee. That he's right-handed as well, right?
Yes.
So he has to learn how to pivot and throw off that leg as well. And when we talk about the knee, obviously we know that it flexes and extends, but also it has to deal with some levels of rotation. And with that ACL as well, was it just that, or did he tear everything else with it as well? Like the triad that we talked about, it's the ACL, medial meniscus, and MCL.
I think it was just that. He
That's
had some
rare.
I think he had some bone bruising, but I'm pretty sure. I don't remember, actually. I don't think the meniscus was involved, though. But he might have had some MCL. I think it was the
probably MCL.
Yeah. And so he might have some or it may have overstretched or may have bruised, but it had some swelling over there. I remember now, but fortunately for him, it wasn't like you said, the unhappy triad type of thing. Yeah,
that's technically every time I hear one of them, I'm gonna go check for the other.
Yeah.
And that's actually I learned that from Alvin and also from my own experience, because when I tore mine, they just said it was an MCL issue, right? Which. Whatever, right? You know, like I said, orthopedic tests in the beginning aren't always 100% correct, although it doesn't mean we throw them out the window. It's you have other things kind of playing factor in there. But yeah, to check the MCL and see how it does in lateral planes, and then how does the ACL deal with like those the translation of the when your knee moves and turns is really important to a sport, right? I saw that you're doing a couple single leg hop things there. What was your thought process on that for him?
So single leg stability, that's the big one. Dynamic single leg stability, right? So so the hop test, right? What's a hop test? The single leg hop test is like you go, how far can you jump on a single leg 3 times, and then you do it on the good side, and you do it on the bad side, the affected side, and then you kind of make sure it matches or it gets as close as possible. That's basically essentially the test. And so sometimes you're in PT, you're kind of training for that test. You want them to pass that test essentially, right? And then same thing with his, he talked about like deceleration and pushing off. So we did a lot of, it's not lateral single leg push-offs, right? With that resistance band. And so it just gets them a little more comfortable on single leg activities. Like in PT, we tend to get focused on a lot of closed chain meaning like both their feet are on the ground. Yeah, because it's both feet. It's safe and things like that. But the demands of the sport are different from the demands of regular life. And so they have to be able to tolerate those things. And if you're not training for that or not preparing for that, then you kind of run the risk of like them having to figure that out on their own, or potentially them hurting themselves again. And we don't want to do that. We want to cover as much of our bases as possible. And like we talked about, like this, where we are in the season of his rehab, or a season of his training now, it's like that dynamic single leg stability. So we do a lot of single leg stuff, even just something simple like a single leg RDL, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so that's a really good, relatively dynamic way to engage a lot of tissue, not just simply, the quad, it's like, the hip hinge and the glutes and the hammies and all that stuff. And so.
Yeah. Like, obviously there's going to be, like what you said earlier, like there's going to be like a quote unquote hypertrophy phase. There's going to be just an overall, like just strength phase of the rehab. And like how we and Alvin talk, we often think about it as like just training in general. It's just with the presence of injury, right? For one of my patients right now, she is, I want to say like, we had a joke about this because our ACL tears were like at the same time, roughly. So it was like also 4 or 5 years ago. But for her, she's trying to get into like lower levels of professional soccer because she has all the contracts and everything, all of that. But she's also kind of scared for her knees because she's actually blown out both ACLs. I know. We had a hard time on that one because that one's rough. But for her, like she's strong, but she doesn't know how to stop herself, right? So in some ways, like, we're still going to do all the other things, but we have to put it in precarious positions. So today it was a lot of like RDL into a bound into a jump, well, bound into like a stop, right? And making that as quiet as possible, right? Rather than it just being a really loud landing situation where all that force is going up into the system and not being dispersed across the muscles there. But that's important for your sport, right? So in some ways it looks really dangerous because, you have to be ready to go in certain positions. I saw that you were preparing, I almost said his name again, that athlete for that. Is there any big challenges that you've seen when doing quote unquote more dangerous things?
That's a good question. I mean, I think pain is number one. It shouldn't have pain at that point. And then just looking quality of movement, right? How shaky is it? How confident are they? Are they like, it's a really different from right to left? I mean, you just have to progress. Like, putting yourselves in their shoes, right? Like, if you go from like a small movement, like being on the table, to a big movement where you're on your feet, being like jumping and things like that, single leg jumping, like it's quite a big jump. So how do you, as a practitioner, how do you progress that, right? Like, how do you scale that thing? CrossFit does a good job of learning how to scale. If you can't do a certain movement, you can always scale down to do a different movement that's similar and can still stimulate a similar type of movement patterns or strengthening. And so being really good at progressions is really important. A good one, we may have done it before with you, is like with that long band. So if you have the long band kind of behind you and you step back, because it's going to pull you forward, you basically just do a lunge forward. And you've probably seen me with our football player do that. And so it forces them to go forward, but it because of the resistance, it's a lot more force that's required of you to decelerate. And decelerate is one of the first things, at least I feel like, in dynamic stuff that you have to learn to tolerate before you go back to sport. Is that deceleration.
Like it's always easy to generate force, but you have to learn how to stop yourself, especially in sport, right? When we talk about non-contact injuries, that's actually a lot of times where someone gets injured on the land, on something where they're just putting their foot out and then all of a sudden they turn. It's not necessarily, it could be a biomechanical issue that's a part of it, but really we have to learn how to throw them the brakes so that the other tissues don't. It's
a motor control problem. A lot of times a big motor control problem.
And then there's mine that was traumatic. Someone fell on the leg, so I can't.
Oh, is that what happened?
Yeah, that's what happened to me. Someone fell on my leg. I couldn't.
Oh, this is basketball. The second one was basketball.
The second one was basketball. I've messed up my knees multiple times. We don't talk about that one. But the initial ACL tear was I was in a class and jiu-jitsu class, and someone fell on the leg, and the rest is history.
That's rough.
So it wasn't anything that I really could control at that point. It just kind of happened. But in terms of your non-contact injuries, like my patient here, and was yours non-contact, or do you remember?
I believe it was non-contact.
We'll assume it's non-contact, right? Those ones, they can come across from certain signs and symptoms beforehand. Like, did they overwork beforehand? How was their season like? How was their sleep like? All the major things, the small minor aches where it's like, hey, we never addressed this. This is where it can lead up. For like those aspects, what are like your quote unquote red lines for a patient where it's like, okay, this is how I'm feeling. You may get injured. Does that make sense?
Like a red flag?
Yeah, your red flag.
Oh, that's a good question. I feel like
I'm kind of all over the place. I'm just asking.
Injury prevention is also one of those really tricky subjects in terms of like, oh, can you really prevent injury, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think we can prepare ourselves as best as possible to recover well from an injury. I think that's relatively easier to think about, but like there are things like SFMA, FMS that kind of work on showing what are some limitations in your movement patterns that can potentially make someone more at risk if they can't do this level of squat, if they can't do this level of overhead positioning. But honestly, I feel like it's really hard to predict if someone can will have a certain injury. I think there's some people who are just prone to it for whatever reason, and there's some people who they may not be very athletic looking, but they don't get hurt for some reason. And honestly, like I don't know. When people come to ask me and they're like, oh, we want you to work with this person to help prevent injury. And I'm always like, well, it's hard for me to be like, this is going to be the exact thing to help you. And because I don't want to, like, you get hurt, then it's my fault because I didn't prevent that. Like, it's really hard. But what I can do is build you, like we talked about before, is build so much resilience that the injuries are they're less traumatic. And if you do get hurt, your recovery is so much faster and you're able to get back as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And so,
like when we're talking about this injury specifically, right? There's so much to it, right? Like with mine was traumatic, non-contacts. There's only so much that you can really do.
Right? Prepare for that. Right?
You can't really prepare for random stuff, right? Yeah. Well, at least we try to, but you can't really do a whole lot with it. With that being said, right? I agree with Alvin. Like our goal isn't to 100% stop because we can't play those odds, right? There's always going to be at least a 0.001% that is going to happen, right? Even in the most safest position. But what we can do is in those other 5, 10, 15% make you more confident in those positions and also stronger in those positions so that 5% is now 2%, right? One thing that I like to check in on athletes especially where it's like, a non-contact injury could eventually happen, is just like, where are they at in terms of like where they're at mentally, where are they at in terms of workload overall, and where are they at in terms of just nutrition and sleep. Usually when we see a very traumatic injury like an ACL tear or just an Achilles tear, not to tangent off of it, but like the bigger ones, was potentially a nagging injury beforehand where it was just quote unquote calf tightness or like, my knee was kind of sore. And then 2, they're playing more often than what they've normally have in the last month or 2 or 2.5 months. I hate to always bring up these ones, but like Derrick Rose is one of them. He was actually, funny enough, he was the one that wanted me to get into sports medicine because of that whole saga there. But for him, he was playing a lot of minutes under that coach. And then first round of the playoffs, tore it, right? Granted, he's also a very explosive guy, so there's other factors in there, but I was kind of curious about that one. Like, is it just because they are doing too much or not? And then whenever we see like a Kobe Bryant type of injury, he was also playing a lot more that season. Yeah. So whenever we talk about injury prevention, I actually dive down that one. I'm not saying stop your sport, right? But what I am saying is kind of monitor how much you're doing. Right?
Yeah, I think there's also the idea of like how hard you train is also how hard you have to recover.
Yes, 100%.
Right?
Yeah.
And so if your ratio to training and recovery is really off, then I mean, just simple overuse is gonna be a big problem, right? Mm-hmm. Achilles tendonitis, shoulder tendonitis, right? And so how are you recovering? Like David was saying, like sleep. A lot of guys just don't sleep very well. Yeah. Nutrition is always a big thing. It's just like they just eat whatever is available because it's quick and easy. Maybe they're going out a ton. Eating bad stuff, and so maybe athletes. A lot of sugar. Things like that. And so you're not putting your body in an environment where it can recover really well. And then all of a sudden you have to perform again. And then like even just general stressors like life, maybe you have a family, maybe you're in school, you're in college, you're in high school, you're dealing with stuff, girlfriends, husbands, wives, whatever. There's so many different factors to what can cause or what can contribute to particular injuries. And so we want to try to look at a person as a whole person and try to address as much of we can control as possible. There's things you can't control. You can't control someone freaking falling on your leg, right? But you can control what you put in your body. You can control how much you put time into recovery. Are you using it? Are you doing an ice bath? Are you doing a sauna? Are you getting a massage? Or
sleeping?
And a lot of these requires resources, but something simple like sleeping, like you said, right, is a really big deal. Drinking enough water. A lot of people don't drink any water.
Yeah, I haven't been. I've been really bad.
Yeah, neither do I. And so, or like guys will go through entire practices without drinking any water, and all of a sudden they're cramping cramping. That's a big problem of my volleyball group. Is, man, they cramp all the time because they're so intense. They'll play in a tournament and they're just so hyper focused on trying to hit as hard or jump as hard as possible. And all of a sudden, at the end of the day, they just can't walk anymore because they don't drink water. Yeah, something simple like that. And so, making sure you get being a full. Take into account to your whole everything in order for you to be as best of an athlete as possible.
100%. Especially when we talk about like not necessarily traumatic, but like a big injury like this, like we can't, like honestly, we can't 100% prevent it. I wish we could. That's just a part of life. But what we can do is control the other factors that could lead into it, right? And that's really our goal when we talk about prehab, where you want us to protect it, or right afterwards, like since it's already happened, how do we get you back, right? It's all, everything that we talk about with stopping the injury, it still applies when it already has happened to help you recover and heal that thing. So like the sleep is a big thing right after surgery or right after tear. Where's your nutrition at? Just because it'll help with that overall. All right, so we've talked a bunch about the ACL, what it does, how to prevent injury, quote unquote prevent injury, or rehab it back together. Obviously, it feels like a very grim subject, but what are some of the biggest wins that you've seen from helping someone get back on the field? Obviously, that's a win in itself.
Right, that's probably the biggest one. Them playing their sport again, which is huge, because it's a very long process, right? Yeah. It's ideally it's a year plus for full recovery. So I know some people come back pretty quickly, but true graft healing and true graft absorption into whatever the knee takes a year for it to happen, maybe even a year and 2-3 months, right? And so that would be the most ideal. But seeing them get through that whole process, going from like, man, I can't bend my knee and it's completely swollen in a giant brace, to like, now I'm going to a full sport, like watching football, which is very dynamic, can be pretty violent at times as well, but they're able to do it. And so that's really cool. Basketball, same thing, volleyball, all these really dynamic stuff.
Like for me, I mean, obviously I agree with all that, just to see someone, like take their first jump shot again after everything, or go out for a sprint. But really my favorite one is actually when they first get to walk again.
Walking and running are really big deals.
Like right after the crutches, and they're a little scared and they go for it, and then that face that they get when they can take a couple steps. Obviously not a perfect walk yet. It's a little bit of a limp, more than a little bit. It is a limp. But the confidence that they're gaining back there is really a huge win for me, just because I remember that for myself to not have to use crutches anymore. It was such like a mental relief. So that's actually like my favorite milestone, just to see them walk.
I like that too. That's a great one. Walking, I think your first jog is a really big deal, because that was like you're kind of like single leg stuff now. Oh, that's really awesome.
So I feel like in terms of the ACL stuff, we've kind of beat that dead horse for a good amount of time, actually. So if you really have any other questions about it, I know we're not as entertaining as Doc T when it comes to jokes. We're more straightforward here. But if you have any other things that you wanted to learn about, go ahead, leave us a message, and we'll talk about it. We could talk about shoulders a different time. That one's complex and not complex at the same time. I hate it, but I love it. Whatever sport that you're into. You have anything to add in here?
No, that was good. I mean, like I said, ACL can be pretty complicated, but at the same time, like it's a good journey for everyone. Oh, and I would say, it's a really interesting journey for sure. You're like, it's a lot of maturing, a lot of mental strength that's required, and so not just simply the physical healing part.
Do you have any big takeaways that you've learned or added to this?
From being here, or
just from here? Those last couple.
I think it's good to see kind of your growth in terms of like where the type of patients that you're seeing, and the rehab that you're going to be exposed to, and the type of exercise that you're going to learning, and that you're already learning, that you already know, and then how do you use your past experiences to help other people, and that's going to be really important, and especially like when you start to get your niche of people, right? Like if you want just the powerlifters or just like that group of people, like you're gonna your wealth of experience and knowledge in the rehab setting is going to take you pretty far, or really far, and then you're going to be a really not that you aren't already, but within that community as well, which is a very trusted source, and which is really important, because not everyone has a resource to go to figure out what's wrong with them, or how to do this, I'm hurt my back doing this, and how do I get back to that, right? Usually they just have to go to their primary care, and then go to maybe like their referred clinician, and maybe they don't even have a squat rack in there, and so it's like you're not going to get as much as you would need for your particular sport. But you being here is already a great resource for the community. And so that's going to be really important. And as you continue to grow, it's going to be really cool to see the knowledge that you're gaining. And then you're already teaching me stuff. And so like the more that I learn from you, it's going to be really fun too. Cause then I want to keep learning. I want to keep stealing information from your brain and what exercises you do and how do I do that? How do I train this? And so that's going to be really important, really cool to see.
Yeah, 100%. I've 100% told everyone in terms of like the ACL stuff. Obviously, like I've lived through it. I kind of know how it works, but I've also stolen so much from you. And so I wanted to talk to you about this, not talk to you, but talk about this with you on this, just because it gave me a framework to kind of run through. Just even to just retouch on like the markers, what to look for and everything like that. Like, was it in the back of my head? Probably, but just to see it from like your perspective, even T's perspective, I'm pretty sure he has a bunch on that too. It's just great to see. So whenever you come into SHARC, you kind of get, you know, not just me, but the effects of Alvin on me and my effects on Alvin. He has better effects on me than I have on him at this point. I'm still doing dumb stuff out there in terms of weight, but it's fun.
It helps me too. Like it forces me to have to remember some of these things. Because let's say I haven't seen a particular injury for a while. I'm like, oh yeah, we used to do this, we used to do that, or this would work too, and this would work too. So it's always good to kind of cross like hear about like, okay, what are your experiences? What are my experiences? And then like it brings up other memories or brings up knowledges that I didn't know I had. Like, oh yeah, we did this, and then I can go like, oh, Nandi's actually really good at something like this, and then we can talk to Nandi or Dr. Tom, and so it's really fun when you have a large group of providers that can have so many different experiences, 100%. Like. 100%. And with different types of populations, and so you can take upon versus just having like I gotta find it on the internet or I gotta read a book on this stuff, and so that way you don't feel alone, right? Because a lot of times if you're kind of on your own, maybe you're just running a practice by yourself, like who do you talk to, right? Like, especially it's hard to just like call someone in right away, but you know Dr. David's like down the hallway, and I can just get like, hey, like what do you think of this? Can you do this for me? Like, and so.
100%, yeah. So whenever you come here to get treated by either one of us, it's definitely a group effort. I've asked Alvin a couple of times, like, hey, I think this is what's going on. I don't know. What do you see? And he's asked me a couple of times on terms of like low back stuff too. Yeah, we've done that. So I guess we can wrap this one up, put a bow on it.
Yeah,
I don't feel like we need anything else to do. Happy to get him on another one. We'll see if we can get him on a couple more, even Nandi. So if you, like I said, if you have any questions, go ahead and send it over. We'll see if we can answer them, and we'll kind of go from there. This is SHARC Doc Talk. This is Dr. David
and Dr. Alvin,
and you guys have a great rest of your day.
Peace.